Cheer. I'm going to teach you guys how to make the pull-eye rig. I believe this is the best surf casting rig you can use in New Zealand. This rig is very versatile. You can catch just about any species of fish with this rig, whether it's sharks, whether it's stingrays, whatever. Kahawai, of course, giant kingfish on this rig. Really anything. I think it's a rig that you can buy at hunting and fishing. They're fairly expensive and they look pretty complicated. And I don't think they're worth their money. You could tie everything for a fraction of the price and tie as many as you want. The rig that I use is usually done off the beach, but I've used it off the rocks. I think, especially if you're trying to catch blue moki, this is a wonderful rig you can use. I don't see any major downsides with it, but I'll just show you. I just tied up a rig before just to give a demonstration of what this rig is and what it's used for. This is what it looks like when it is all compact together like that. You can see I've got a breakaway sinker. I've got one folded with that notch over there and my hook sitting on it. This actually makes a very compact trace. So if you're wanting to cast far and you need to get past those breakers, or if you see a deep trough just behind the breakers, this rig will get you there. This rig, you can just get a cheap $50 fishing rod, or I don't know how much they are now, but a cheap surf casting rod with probably not the best line, not the best rod, not the best reel. Learn a basic few knots. And I'm speaking from experience. I mainly fished with the lower quality gear just because I'm not made of money. And it's caught me fish. In fact, when I first started using this rig, one of the first times I used it, I caught a 25 kilo kingfish off the beach on a piece of mullet. And then from there, I've hooked big bronze whaler sharks. I lost it. It was one of my last shark fishing trips I could go for the year. But I've caught gurnet on it, caught snapper, kahawai, blue cod, lots of blue cod on this rig. School sharks, dogfish, rig. It doesn't actually matter. You catch flounder on this rig if you really wanted to. And it's all by just adjusting a few things. That is how long your main trace is, and that will make sense as I show you how to make it. How long your hook length is. Like my one is a steel trace because I'm getting sick of getting bitten off with sharks and losing my gear. It's not cheap anymore. I use a polystyrene ball to keep it afloat, just because I'm using steel wire. I just like to have them. I think they also just add a bit of color, and for me it gives me a bit more confidence. But even with the steel trace, you will catch anything on that. If you really wanted to, you could catch. I don't think the fish are as picky as we make them out to be. And yeah, like this rig just works anywhere. I wouldn't use it on the boat. It's not really a boat fishing rig. Just use your normal ledger rig. You'll be fine. But for the surf casters out there, for the people who don't have a boat or a kayak and just want to get yourself a simple feed, who don't want to muck around with long rigs and always baiting up 2-3 hooks all the time and bringing them in and getting your bait stolen all the time. This is a single hook rig. You can put a stinger hook on the rig if you want to. That's just a free-flowing, smaller rig hook on there if you're using like a full pilchard or a bigger bait. But again, that's the customizable stuff from it. And if you know any things about rigs, you can put some things together, customize it to what you want, customize it to your rods, customize it to the rivers or estuaries. This is a great rig for estuaries. Wherever you are, you change. And I changed my rig. I changed the length. I changed the bait size, the line I'm using. I pretty much only use steel for my trace, and I use 40-pound mono for my sinker line. But I think I've talked enough. Let's get into this rig. There are a few things you're going to need to have. You're going to need to have snippies, side cutters. going to need some pliers. Now this is if you're choosing to use the steel. If you're not using steel, you don't need this. But I would recommend using steel if you keep losing your hooks and stuff to small sharks. This is the cheap 40-pound, cheap 40-pound mono. Never had anything break off. I've even hooked big sharks and never lost anything on 40-pound line. This is my steel trace that I use. Turn it around. Yeah. And this is my breakaway sinker. I've already shown you it. This is a 4-ounce. Use whatever size you want depending on your conditions. That I'll leave up to you. I use a size 4 suicide hook, also known as a circle hook. You will need some swivels. That's not the right one. I use these small compact swivels. That is 45 kilos. Flipping, you're gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. I like using smaller tackle, big, just for my sake. I don't know, it makes me feel better or something. Just some beads or something. You need 2 beads, Lumo beads, whatever beads you have. Doesn't matter too much. Don't use glass beads, they'll break, but plastic beads, whatever you have, it should be fine. And now I'm going to show you my universal length things that I use. I will use about, grab one from one end to about that long. Arm out. It's about 1 meter. It's just a simple measurement. You can use whatever part, however long. If you even want to measure it with a ruler, that's up to you. Do what you think is best. I'm going to show you how I connect my sinker. I'm going to make a double figure of 8. So what I did is I just made a loop. Bam. Make that loop fairly big. You want to be able to just catch that breakaway sinker. You can only really use this rig with a breakaway sinker. There are ways around it. If you want me to have some questions about, if you have some questions, just ask me. I'll show you or tell you how to do it. But I think for the case, just get yourself a breakaway sinkers. Yeah, just do that. It's a lot simpler. You just go like that. So this is a double figure of 8. There are many knot tutorials. I recommend you watch some. And all the knots that I use, I'll tell you. So if you want to learn the knots, you can learn them. If you're a brand new fisherman, start learning the knots, then move on to this rig and learn how to tie this rig. If you can tie this rig, you can tie any rig out there, period. So anyway, double figure of 8. If I talk too much, I'm so sorry. I just want everyone to know how to tie this rig. I just want to teach. I love teaching people how to fish. I love teaching people how to fish this rig. Snip your tag ends, pull it tight. It's really simple. So yep, that's a double figure of 8. And I measure from my arm. Yeah, that's about that long. Cut it. Now, this is where things get a little bit important, and you do actually have to listen to the order of the things I do, because they really do matter, but it's not complicated. So the first thing you want to do is you want to grab your bead, put your first bead in, then you need to grab a swivel. You can use whatever swivel you want, preferably surf casting swivels, strong swivels. I would say use strong swivels. Yeah, so you put your bead in, then your swivel. You'll see it looks like this. Bead, swivel, bead again. This is so simple. Then, what we do is, that's what it's like. I'm going to put on a, just a normal swivel. You can use snap-on swivels, because this end that I'm about to tie on is where your trace is going to go. For the sake of simplicity, I am going to use mono, because trying to show you how I tie a steel trace might be a little bit too much for this video. But if you want to learn how to use steel trace, I highly recommend it. Learn the haywire twist. it is your best one. The knot I'm using is called a fisherman's knot, or just a normal uni knot. What I do, obviously, I just put my swivel, put my line through my swivel, whichever way you want. I make a loop with it. Sorry, I already make a loop. What I do is I grab my finger, grab the swivel, and I hold my finger there. That is going to give you a big eye. So that's going to give you the eye of the knot, and you'll see it when I start twisting. So, it's a bit annoying on camera. Once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 twists is perfect. This is the eye. Put it through the eye. Grab your tag end, pull on tight, wet it with your mouth or water, whatever you want. Yeah. So now you've got a rig like this. You've got your double figure of 8. That's where your sinker is going to be attached to. And you've got your 2 beads and a swivel. You can see the swivel and the beads move freely. They have to move freely. I don't know how you could muck it up, but yeah, it needs to be free. Now I'm going to take some trace. And the first thing I do whenever I do a trace, this is really important, you tie your hook on first, or you put your beads, or in this case, I don't have any at the moment, but you use your two polystyrene balls, put them in. I like pink and orange, they're my favorite colors. That's just what has worked for me over the years. But yeah, I would put those on. You don't have to, I just do it. You tie another uni knot, again, 6 twists. This is if you're just using a mono rig. You wouldn't do this if you were using steel. And put that in. Pull. Hold. Wet. There you go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a little bit longer. So I like to keep it about 20 centimeters. I give myself a little bit more for the knot I'm going to tie, but you want it around 20 centimeters. The reason for this is the longer your trace, the more likely it is to get tangled. Doesn't mean it's going to. And I've used long traces in the past, and for the whole day, never really had a tangle while fishing. This line will tangle when you reel it in, but out in the water, it usually, with the swivels and everything, won't tangle. But I keep them a little bit shorter. The reason for that is it helped me cast farther. And that'll make sense as we go on. So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to tie it to my swivel. And you essentially have the rig done. The only thing you need to do is weave on your sinker. You can tie on a snap-on swivel at the bottom and just snap on your sinker like that. I used to do that, but snap-on swivels aren't as cheap as they used to be. And I know a double figure of 8, so do it figure of 8. Wherever possible, it is better to use knots than it is to use tackle. Knots are good. You have to have swivels, otherwise your line will tangle. Again, just another uni knot to my swivel, but that's the only reason why you do use a snap-on swivel is if you really just wanted to change your sinkers really quick because your beach or wherever you're going needs a lighter or heavier sinker. But I use 4-ounce sinker. I've used 4-ounce sinkers all around the world, or where I fished in the world and in New Zealand, and I think it's the best weight. I've never had it pull, except for some really insane places, but the chances of you fishing there are not very likely because you have to drive out in the middle of nowhere. And but yeah, your normal beaches where you're going to go, 4 ounce is fine. So again, just you're doing a double figure of 8, you take your loop, you push it through, you wrap it around and pull it. Now you've got your hook, trace to your swivel to a free swivel. Grab that swivel, bend it over, pull the hook down till it catches the notch, sits like that. What happens is when it hits the bottom, flows in. It sits like that. So my sink is here, this is the trace, this is my hook. I know it's hard to show, but something like that. So this will actually allow you to fish higher water columns. Depending on your angle of rod, you can have your rod angle lower, which will actually bring this bait lower to the ground, which is great. I make my own rod holders out of driftwood where I'm at. So I usually have my rod tip lower if I'm trying to catch things like gurnard or your bottom feeding fish, if I'm trying to catch rig. And if I'm trying to catch or even moki, I do that with moki. But if I'm trying to just go over around, might just put it in a rod holder and let it just sit wherever. And this is the awesome thing. You can change the way your rig sits by holding your rod different ways. Anyway, that's the rig. It's very simple. Please try it out. If you guys do it, tell me how it went. Tell me your struggles with it. I know it can be a bit of a learning curve, but also don't be too worried. When you reel that in and your line is tangled, that's very normal. Because of the way you're reeling it in, it always just tangles up. It doesn't mean it's tangled out in the water. I know that's hard for people to get their heads around. I struggled with it when I first did, but the reason why I know it doesn't tangle is because I'm catching fish. And there are multiple times when I do reel it in and my line's not tangled at all. And I think one of the reasons why people get tangled is when they bring their hook down, you have to make sure there's no tangles initially. So that has no tangles. But if I had to wrap that around the trace and I brought it up, you can see there's a tangle there. It's wrapped around. But if you go like that and it drops up, you usually lose your tangle. And I don't actually care that much because I know I lose my tangle every time it happens. So yeah, just twist it over, do that. I'm going to just re-say it. If you're losing your gear from sharks, and if you are actually targeting sharks, because I do, I love eating school sharks and dogfish. I think they taste wonderful. I make fish fingers out of them. They're great. Use the steel trace. You're not going to miss out on your other species, but you are going to bring more fish aboard. And if you're a beginner, just catching something is all you need. Or even if you're an intermediate, because I started using this rig when I was a more intermediate fisherman, and I never used steel traces because I never fished anywhere there were sharks. But now that I am fishing places in the South Island where there are lots of little sharks that will actually cut you off, even that 40-pound trace, just use steel. You won't lose as many fish. You'll have more fish. You'll have more sharks, and you will have more food taken home. Also, if you are fishing where there's sharks, and I have caught some big ones on small baits, you'll be really surprised. Even 7-gillers. If you catch one under 2 meters, you can eat them. They taste pretty good. I essentially will eat anything, except for really kahawai. I don't like kahawai and trout. But yeah, that's the pull-eye rig. Sorry I rambled on too much, but if you really want to step the game up, if you really want to stop using those flashy tracer rigs and everything like that, and always buying rigs and hunting and fishing, and tying your own rigs, I think that's something every beginner fisherman should learn. You really should learn. Or an intermediate, or even if you're an expert, you really need to learn your own rigs. You save yourself a ton of money. You have more satisfaction of what you're doing. There's just more joy in it, and you get to do whatever you want in that rig. You get to use colors, no colors. You can use monofilament, you can use fluorocarbon, you can use whatever you want. But try this rig. I think the people of New Zealand will realize how effective it is, how good it is, how many fish it catches. And if my experience is anything, whenever I'm out fishing and I use this rig, I usually catch more fish. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Please like, subscribe, tell me how I can do better, just whatever. I really want to know how I can teach people more about fishing, whether it's surf casting, whether it's trout fishing, whatever. It doesn't matter. I do a lot of different types of fishing, and I just want to share my knowledge with everyone and make sure that more people catch fish. Anyway, you guys have a good day. Hopefully you catch a lot of fish. Till then, I'll see you in the next video.